So once you pass your driving test, you'll probably want to buy a car and you'll try to figure out what is your budget, what car should I get. But when you're considering buying a car, you have to also consider the cost of insurance. Now we're just going to give you a few tips in how to get the insurance a bit lower, how to get cheap insurance, especially as a new driver. Maybe you just passed, maybe you're still quite young and you're not sure exactly how it works. As we said, before purchasing a car, do consider the cost of your driving insurance. Now, certain things are unavoidable, such as the year that you pass your driving test. Now, if you pass your driving test and straight away you want to buy a car, you can't change the year that you pass your driving test. Whereas someone who's passed the driving test maybe 5 years ago and they haven't driven a car yet, or maybe you're about to go to uni and you're thinking, let me wait a couple of years before I purchase my first car, then your insurance can get cheaper because now you're not a fresh new driver. So that's one of the first questions your insurance company will ask you is which year did you pass your driving test. The second, again, which you can't avoid, is your gender. Now, a boy compared to a girl from the insurance point of view, I know it's quite sexist, but they view that young lads are more likely to get into an accident compared to a young lady. Insurance can be expensive, especially as a new driver, and not only as a new driver but also the age. Now, if you pass your driving test at a very young age, say 17 or 18, and you now want to buy a car, compared to someone who's passed a driving test at 30 years old, from the insurance point of view, the 30-year-old is more safe and less likely to get into a crash compared to a young teenager. So the older you are, the more likely your insurance will be cheaper. Another factor that affects your insurance is the type of car that you buy. So if you buy this Audi R8 here, as you can see the value is firstly 150k, above 150k. You can see, let's look at the specifications, a 5.2 litre engine. So big engine size. Let's look at the specifications. You can see here it's 600 over 600 bhp brake horsepower. 0 to 62 in about 3.2 seconds. It's got about 40 valves, and if you compare it to like a smaller car, look at this little hatchback. It's a Ford Ka, value just over £2,000, and if you just bring it down, 1.2 litre engine. What else? Performances. You can see, look, 68 bhp brake horsepower, almost 10 times less, and 0 to 60 in about 13.4 seconds. So the point is, the bigger the car, the bigger the engine, the more your insurance will cost, as well as the value of the car. So if you buy a small little hatchback, 1.2 litre compared to this Audi R8 convertible over 5 litre engine, then of course your insurance is going to be a lot more pricier. Other factors that might surprise you that will affect your driving insurance will be the location that you're at. So certain location has higher crash rates or maybe higher crime activity compared to other areas. So depending on the location, some areas will have higher insurance compared to others. So bear that in mind. And don't forget, you also have as well where you're going to keep the car. So are you going to keep it inside your driveway? Is it a garage that you go, or is it on the street, or is it on a completely different street? So those also affect your car insurance. Obviously, if it's inside the garage, it's going to be locked, it's going to be secured. So again, your insurance company will look at that and possibly make your insurance a lot cheaper compared to someone who's parked on the street. So those are a few examples of how to get your insurance cheaper. Then there's other things that you might again be surprised by, which is your status, your marital status. Are you single or are you married? Are you living with your partner or are you living by yourself? Are you living with your parents? All these factors can also affect your insurance. So if you're married, insurance companies view that, okay, you're more likely to be safe. You're more likely to be thinking about, say if you got kids, and you're not going to be a reckless driver. Again, these things do affect your insurance. It is quite surprising, but if you're a single person living by yourself, maybe a single young lad as well, as we talked about previously, being a young man can make your insurance higher because they just view, insurance companies view, that men are more likely to be involved in accidents. Nonetheless, if you're a single young man compared to a married young man, they're going to make the married young man give his insurance, driving insurance, a lot more cheaper compared to a single young guy. We also have to look at who's the owner of the car and in which order are you the driver, because that can also affect your insurance. And let's give you an example, because insurance companies are looking at, are you going to use the car quite often? If you're unlikely to be using the car as much, they're not going to make your insurance as high, purely because you're not going to be on the road as often. Therefore, you're not going to be involved in many accidents. But say, for example, your parents are the driver of the car or the owner of the car, so they're the first driver, you will then be the second driver, you could even be the third. So your dad's the first, your mom's the second, and you're the third driver. Now the insurance company will view that the third driver, that's you, you're not going to be driving it as often as much. So they're going to feel that, okay, you're less likely to have an accident, so let's make the insurance cheaper. So depending on the driver, as or the order of the driver, as a first driver, the insurance company will view that you're going to drive it quite regularly. But as compared to a second driver, of course, you're not going to drive as much, therefore the insurance will be cheaper. So that also affects your insurance. Another few ways to make sure you get cheap car insurance is make sure you don't put any modifications. So, for example, if you put extra spoiler or put a stereo in, etc., insurance company will view that, okay, it's more likely to be stolen or broken into. So, if you have modifications, they will make your insurance a little bit higher. But then, if you look at the other way, maybe you have extra alarms fitting into your car, or even an immobilizer, which makes sure it's like an electric device that makes sure your car doesn't start if the correct key isn't in. So all these methods will make sure your car insurance isn't too expensive. Another way to make sure you get cheap car insurance will be to add or fit in a black box. So a lot of insurance companies do offer this, especially if you're young, because you can then make your insurance a lot cheaper, maybe by £500. So what exactly is a black box? Black box allows you to drive, but if you make any mistakes, such as breaking the speed limit, it will notify your insurance company, and therefore they'll give you a warning. Now, after 3 warnings, they can cancel your insurance. Quite extreme, I know, quite severe, but if you think about it, because of the severity, because of the warnings, the 3 strikes and you're out, you're less likely to commit a crime. You're more likely to pay attention to the road traffic signs. You're more likely to make sure you adhere to the speed limit, isn't it? Because you don't want that strike. Now the problem could be maybe one of your parents jumps in the car, so make sure you're a bit careful with this. If your parents are insured with the car, they take the car out and they might accidentally break the speed limit. Again, your insurance company will be notified. They're gonna give you the strike nonetheless. So there is a negative to it, but the positive is you're gonna drive safely and correctly, and your insurance will be a lot cheaper. So those are a few examples that may affect your driving insurance, especially when you're going looking to buy a car. Make sure you look into those factors. On our site fmdriverschool.co.uk, you can see a list of more things that may affect your driving car insurance. So go check it out. Don't forget, guys, to like, share, and subscribe with FM Driver School.